Hi, and welcome back to Blues Gardens. Long week, a lot to cover. The week was last bit of outside, some of the indoor gardening, and also a ton in my kitchen, as will probably be the case for the rest of November and the first half of December, anyway. Um, I did some last of my outdoor garden plants were composted, harvested some outdoor lettuce. I made finished up the blueberry vodka. Thanksgiving's coming up in just half a week, almost a week. Um, I also spent some time. I finished up some cinnamon applesauce I made, a medium spicy salsa. Um, Show you how the indoor lettuce and celery are growing. Started the lettuce from seeds, started the celery from a stalk that was from the grocery store, but all winter long I do this when I cut the celery and I use the bits for whatever mirepoix or whatever I'm cooking with. Um, I will regrow the celery stalks. What else? I made a quiche and I did some non-kitchen garden stuff. My real job, I worked over at the Boston Public Library and did a big fundraiser for network schools. Great fundraiser, fun little event. And I spent a good deal of time making pasta sauce. I grow a ton of tomatoes. And with growing all these tomatoes, I find myself I can't use them all during the week. Each week I pick them all summer long, all September, even into October. Whatever I can't use, I will run through the food processor and freeze that tomato. Then, come November at some point, I will thaw it out and make a huge batch of tomato sauce. I so far have bagged up um, I want to say it's about 6 or 7 full gallons in the Ziploc, and at least that many, probably closer to 8 or 9 quart size of the pasta sauce. I'll take one out and use it when we cook. If it's just my wife and I, will just use a quart sauce. If it's a larger group, I'll use one of the gallon size. I also give a bunch of the quart size to my daughter so she can have some in her freezer at her apartment and just take some out when she gets home. Anyway, let's take a look. Let's start with the last of the plant composting. Digging up the last of the tomato plants out of the little netting that I had them growing up on my trellis. That is destined, these guys are destined for the compost pile. That's the 2 compost bins back there. And just get the last of them out of there and toss them in. And while I was doing this, I actually found some green tomatoes. I ended up picking them. And also the last of these brandywines into the compost bin. The tomatoes are done for the season. In fact, everything's done at this point, although some of it may not show up in this video. The lettuces were done as well. But into the compost bin, cut it up as much as I can. I just like to chop them, give them a head start, give the bugs a head start, worms and bugs and whatever is going to break this all down. As you know, some of the tomato stalks can get a little woody. And the more you can break it down, the more you can cut it up, the finer your compost will be for the spring. Although the bin to the right, just barely out of frame, is the one I'll use to start in the spring. This bin that I'm using will be for midsummer and for the following spring. I try and go a full year letting the compost mature. And so every other one I flip, every other bin, flip them and use them. This has all got also have some of the potted plants that were left on my front steps and my side steps and back porch. That stuff also goes in here. Can't hurt. I got to get a new pair of these snippers. They really are challenging. The lock nut doesn't. Flip things around, give it a little turn, dump some of the potted plants out. Let's take a look at the blueberry vodka. This is finishing up the blueberry vodka and bottling it. So, as I mentioned, I started this 6 weeks or so ago. Shake up every week. You shake it every day when you first do it, and then after the first week, you shake it up every week, crack it a little so if there's any pressure built up, it doesn't explode. Then it was time to bottle up. I strain off the blueberries that were in there. Strain these blueberries off. Most of them ended up either in the compost bin or in the trash. I always top off each one of the bottles with a couple of blueberries here and there. But here we go. Strain them off. Pour it into the bottle to be used. And strain off the next batch. Pour them into the little bottles. I wanted to top off the 2 little bottles. Those were important. And then, like I mentioned, add a couple of blueberries. As I mentioned, I made some cinnamon applesauce, and here's finishing that up. I will release a longer video on making the applesauce, actually a complete video on everything that I make individually. But pureed up the applesauce, the cinnamon applesauce, and then jarred it up and labeled them because things starting to blur. As you'll see, the dry goods, my little pantry is starting to fill up in the basement. So label up things. A couple of these jars already went off to my daughter, and these are to enjoy in here. I also mentioned that I did some medium spicy salsa. Again, I'm a wuss, so my girls would probably call it mild, but it's got a little kick to it. Here's the medium spicy salsa. All of these little bits that I'm showing you, I have separate videos that I'll release showing how I make the entire thing. But this is just a recap of what I did this past week or so, week, 10 days. Making salsa. This was actually a pineapple tomato, and it had a definite citrusy flavor to it. It's made it for a nice little salsa here. These are the lemonade that give it a bit of kick. Take the pith out and the seeds out, add a few of those in. There's some onion in, and pepper and tomato, and into the salsa. Into the bowl. And then I will also add in some cumin, some black pepper, ground black pepper. There's actually some sea salt in here that didn't make it in the video, and some coriander. Mix it all in, mix it up, and then jar it up. I also labeled these, so they're labeled medium. That's just for me. No one else in the family calls it medium. I'm a wuss. And now let's catch up to what I've been growing indoors, which is the lettuce I planted and some of the celery that I'm rerooting. Here's the celery. Cut off the stalk. I've been using the celery in, put it in some water, change the water every couple days, and I will eventually root it. Oregano, parsley, and some of the lettuce that is growing in the basement. These are all grown. I've added some more lettuce since then, but at least I've got some going. And then I cut the last of the outdoor lettuce. As I mentioned, pantry's starting to get full.
And lastly, I recap the pasta sauce. Sort of a culmination of all of the growing season. The last of my big harvests is tomatoes, and as I mentioned before, I make a bunch of pasta sauce and salsas out of it. Here's a recap of, not jarring, because I don't jar my sauce, I actually freeze it all in Ziploc bags, and some of that goes to my daughter's apartment, and most of it's for the house here. It usually lasts me until March. So here's the pasta, the end of the pasta sauce. It's a 4 or 5 day cooking.
I can't even begin to tell you how much this is a project over a few days. So I sauteed up some onion and garlic, red onion and garlic, in some olive oil, a little bit of salt, sweat it out for a while, add that into the sauce that I have thawed. There'll be a complete video on it. Boil it off as much as I can at the beginning, and then I simmer it for about 3 days. This is batch 1 of what I did over the course of a week or so. I'll add in some of my dehydrated ground up green onion. I'll also add in some oregano and parsley. These are all out of my garden. Oregano and parsley out of my garden. That's the oregano. There's some basil in there also out of my garden that came out of the dehydrated. Then I will take and bag them up in the quart bags for individual, or, when it's just my wife and I, or my daughter at her apartment. Quarts. I think I've got, I can't remember, 9 or so quarts so far, and 6 or 7 of the full gallon size. Anyway, this all ends up in the freezer. There are 2 of these racks that are in the freezer to freeze up, and that will take me through till about March. Those of you that know me know that not only do I do my work in the gardens and in my kitchen, but my real job is AV. And this is a little fundraiser that I did over at the Boston Public Library for a nonprofit network called Neighborhood Private Schools. Take a look. I probably mentioned this at least every other video for at least a year or so. But I do lighting, sound, and video production for quite a lot of special events in the New England and world nationwide. This was a fundraiser for a local public school system, not public, private school system, neighborhood private schools. And we were over at the Boston Public Library. Heck of a week. Did a bunch of the last of the composting outside. Regularly, the nights are dipping into the mid-20s, which is below freezing for those of you in the Celsius world, below 0. I spent some time in the kitchen, made some applesauce, finished up, it takes about 6 weeks, so finished up the blueberry flavored vodka. Bottled that up. I finished up some medium salsa with some last of the tomatoes that were in the garden. I finished up a quiche, which didn't make it into the video, but that happens. Showed you the indoor lettuce. It's coming along. Cut the last of my lettuce. That didn't make it in the video. My celery is rerooting fine. The stalk is growing again. A little quick glimpse of the Boston Public Library fundraiser I did for some schools. And all in all, I had a great time. So thank you for watching this far. I want to let you know that like, share, and subscribe. That helps me grow. And of course, that helps you grow. Thank you very much.